I'm Matthew Kerbis, the subscription attorney, and this is Law Subscribed, your dedicated source for all things subscriptions and the law. Thank you to my sponsors. See links to them in the show notes. Everything discussed is only for educational and entertainment purposes. Enjoy the show. If you're watching this live, like at the moment that we're going live, you got to see a little bit of awkward silence and back and forth because that's what you get. That's why you want to make sure you connect with me and Ashlee on LinkedIn. You click that bell, you click all to see all notifications so that you see when I'm going live in the future again. And you can see those awkward moments. But for those of you who are just hearing this right now, I'd like to welcome Ashlee Saying to the podcast, Law Subscribed Live. Ashlee, welcome to the pod. Tell my followers, listeners, etc., who you are.
Hi, thank you so much. I love to be in this company of lawyers, as that is not my normal domain. So yes, I am Ashlee Saying. I am the brains and the heart behind Ashlee Saying Consulting. And I work with people who are multi-passionate, deep thinkers. They verge into that overthinking realm. And together we get everything that is in their head and heart out into the world so that they can connect with the real people who need and want exactly what they have. So maybe it's legal services, maybe it is some other grand idea that they have. They need real people on the receiving end, and they need a thought partner to get it out into the world. So that is what I do through brand messaging and related marketing consulting.
Well, I found out about you through the Freelancers Union. You did a great presentation for them. I've been a local Chicago area host for some of their meetups, their Spark meetups in the past. And I've always consumed all the great content that they put out there. Really cool to see that you're also in Illinois. And then I just started consuming a lot of your content that you have out there. I thought it would be really beneficial for my audience to hear from you. And I want to get into that substance, but just one more get to know you question, Ashlee. And that is why? Why are you doing what you're doing?
Okay, that's an amazing question. And this is such a cobbler's shoes situation. This is exactly what I work on with my clients, and that it's really hard for me to articulate. But I feel really, really passionate about impact in general. All of us have this ripple effect, whether it's positive or negative, with every single thing we do. And it is amplified through business. I went down the conscious consumerism rabbit hole about 10, 15 years ago. It opened my eyes to this entire impact space that wasn't necessarily nonprofit, which is what my background was in. And I'm also deeply curious about humans, what makes us tick, what makes us decide things, how we think and feel and do. And that sort of converges in my work, this values-aligned business, this idea of standing for something in order to stand out and make those really, really human connections feels very, very important, because we all know that money makes the world go round. So the more money we can have in the hands of people who are doing good, by our own definitions, right? We all know that's subjective. Mm-hmm. And yet, I do think good is also objective in a lot of ways. And so the more that big thinkers, big dreamers can make a big impact through their really important work, the better off we are as a society, as a world, as a community, as families, etc.
Love it. And now we're going to get to dive in. I want to remind people who, if you're watching live, or even if you're just watching this later on LinkedIn in particular, ask questions in the comments. Don't be shy. Ashlee and I will be notified. We'll be sure to respond, whether that's live right now or in the future. So one of the other things that I think a lot of lawyers have experience with, because I have a lot of experience with it, is the outreach. It's that cold, terrible, horrible outreach with people trying to sell us something. And lawyers, this whole thing, you came up with the title, which is Marketing Under Constraints, or Creative Marketing Under Constraints. They gotta love live. And that is because lawyers, we are ethically prohibited from doing cold outreach, but we are the recipients of it all the time. And so we see what's bad, what doesn't work, at least from a personal perspective. But then what I like about what you teach is outside of lawyers, you're already telling your clients, and on your podcast, what's the name of the podcast for folks? I don't have it in my notes.
Yeah, the Purpose and Progress podcast.
Yeah, so the Purpose and Progress podcast, check it out. Link in the show notes and in the comments to subscribe. You talk about how you shouldn't be doing that anyway. And so I just like, why shouldn't people be doing that anyway? And because lawyers, we can't do it no matter what. But I think we should not, the lawyers should not think, oh, well, like I can't do cold outreach. So, I can't engage in like successful marketing tactics. Well, they might not be successful marketing tactics. They might just do terrible things for your brand. So, like, why do you help your clients not do the spammy things that I'm sure tons of lawyers have been the recipient of?
Yeah. So when you told me that lawyers couldn't cold outreach, I found that fascinating. I actually did not know that. And I have worked with a lot of like financial services professionals who have a lot of constraints around what they can say. But for me, the common thread in all of my clients, any industry, is your how. For me, that's our values. That is how we stand up. That's our operating system. That's how we make decisions. It's how we know who to hire, fellow legal team members, but also the graphic designer, the web designer, the ad agency that you end up hiring, the business coach, whoever it is that values alignment. But more than anything, those values are how the people that you work with, collaborators, staff, and obviously your clients and customers know how to latch onto something. That is how they know who you are as a human. Because I know you know a lot about AI, but at the end of the day, at least as of this conversation, humans are still on the buying decision side of things. You are still marketing to a fellow human. Even if you have some mass campaign, which again, it sounds like lawyers can't even do, but even if you have AI in your pocket, there is a real live human writing that check, clicking yes, deciding yes, that's the budget line that we want, deciding yes, this is the law firm I want to trust. And I feel like especially with legal professionals, trust is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine something that's very, very missing in a lot of firms. I feel like a lot of firms are probably doing the trust factor, the human first business factor, the values alignment factor very poorly because they have a bit of a monopoly or because law is such an enigma to non-lawyers. And so I feel like it's really easy to swindle people. Or we had talked before we went live about poking problems, right? It's really easy to say, you're going to go to jail if you don't hire me. That really that sort of, and I imagine you can't actually say that legally, but the sort of like inflammatory going for that visceral emotional reaction, but like not in an ethical way, just doesn't get you very far, especially when you want to build a legacy, when you want to build a reputation, when you want to build real relationships. Someone like you, for example, you could have recurring clients forever and always. You could have someone come in the door because they like you and they could stick with you for the next, I don't know, 3 decades, 50 years, however long, whether or not you're the practitioner, because your law firm stands for transparency and education and that sort of thing. So cold outreach, first of all, does not have to be icky if it is values aligned. But since lawyers can't do that anyway, it is all about those relationships. It is all about how can we create this customer journey, client experience from the second they Google us or hear about us from word of mouth to the initial onboarding call, to the billing, to the one-on-one consultations, to the offboarding. Is there any sort of explanation? I worked with an accountant once who, after she filed my taxes, she then explained what all the elements were, so I actually knew what she did, which was very much appreciated. I don't have time to Google that. That is why I outsourced that to an accountant. And yet it's very useful to understand the process that she went through, and that simply built trust with me and her. So
I want to pull on that thread because something that a lot of like legal marketers teach lawyers, like that like all they do is they're marketers for law firms, is they teach them, and I hear it. You have to explain to these clients, these potential clients, while their pain points are so bad and so terrible that they have no choice but to hire you and pay you tons of money to do so.
Yeah. And I personally am the hugest anti-fan of that. I think that someone is going to be so much more likely to stick with you, refer you, and just have a better, be a better client for you if you go the ethical marketing route, which for me is much more focused on aspirations. You can absolutely understand their problems. You can understand, they want to avoid jail, or they were in an accident, you do injury law, whatever it is. You can understand the problem without poking at it, without tearing it open, without making them feel worse about a situation. They're problem aware. Many businesses, brand messaging strategy, sometimes my clients are not even problem aware. They don't even know they need brand messaging strategy. Your clients, they know most of the time. Obviously, if they are seeking out a lawyer, they know they need some sort of legal services. Sometimes they don't know the whole expansive world behind the doors, or behind the initial Google search that you could actually serve them with. For example, maybe they come to you for terms and conditions and they didn't realize that they needed this whole other laundry list of things. And if you can build that trust, they might actually be so much more likely to do that laundry list of things with you than feel, well, this person's just trying to swindle me. I don't need that. I've never heard that, or whatever else.
Part of the reason I think that is too is because a lot of lawyers, the business model is churn and burn, right? Like, I'm going to help this person one time with their legal problem and never again. And, bringing back to the whole Law Subscribed podcast of it all is, if you are thinking about potential long-term relationship, and the other version of that is they might become a good referral partner for you, right? They could refer people. So you don't necessarily want to take the churn and burn approach. But even with that, though, if you do have an actual way to generate revenue from these clients over a longer period of time, you have to change the way you're thinking about the first way that they discover you. And that's probably going to be from some kind of marketing or business development or advertising or something. And to do so ethically, the way that you're putting it, and not like a legal ethics, which is a totally different category, but just like what we think of as like what's ethical, what's moral, what's right. Starting out on the right foot with people that they're gonna because you're trying to develop a long-term relationship with them. So that's another reason why I really liked what you're teaching your clients, is because I think it really aligns well with thinking about lifetime value and the subscription model as applied to legal services, or frankly any service provider for that matter.
Yeah, the idea of only working with someone once is really interesting. I'm thinking, like, the first thing that comes to mind is like a divorce lawyer, right? Theoretically, you're only going to need one once. Who knows? But if you need one, you need it now. And for me, though, it's all about that differentiation factor. So, okay, you can't do the cold outreach, but you own your home turf, which is your storefront if you have one, which are your business cards, which is for sure your website. In the past, I've looked for like a therapist. I swear to you, I could not tell the difference between 35 tabs I had open because they all had the exact same credentials. They all had the exact same verbiage. It was the exact same. And so I ended up calling some and just kind of going based on vibe, which is very important to me. Call it vibe, call it intuition, call it gut, whatever you want to call it. But I feel like a lawyer is very similar. If the prices are similar, or even if they're not, someone might be willing to pay you a lot more because they trust you with something that's so personal, like a divorce, like their business, like anything that they are legally protecting. I feel like that differentiation is so important, especially because, again, most of your clients, I imagine, are very legally ignorant. They don't know what they don't know. They don't even know what they're looking for. They might not even know, again, like the specific type of law that they need to be Googling. So if you can, yes, hit the keywords for what they might actually be Googling for your actual expertise that you went to school to have, but also, can you bring in that psychographic element, the thing that actually connects on a human level, the thing that makes your clients tick, the thing that makes your law firm tick? And where can you converge? That is so powerful. Content like yours is really, really great for that. But even just really snappy, empathetic copy for someone to then have that first impression and decide, yeah, I want to have that consult call. Yeah, I'm willing to pay for a 15-minute consultation or whatever it is. That matters so much. And I feel like that's really overlooked. Generic is the baseline. And I think most firms, most businesses in general don't go that step beyond generic.
So you're learning a lot of like legal jargon interacting with me that maybe you didn't have before, and I'm learning a lot of marketing jargon I didn't know before, like even ethical marketing being a thing. But also what you were just talking about sounds like what you had told me it was something called like attraction marketing, right? So
Yeah.
like so now that I have that jargon of attraction marketing, like talk a little bit more about that and like how you're helping your clients like do stuff like that.
Yeah. So for me, attraction marketing is exactly what it sounds. You kind of put out into the world, here's who we are as a firm, here's who I am as a legal practitioner, or if you're not a lawyer listening to this, like, here's what we do, here's what we stand for, and sort of like let them come, right? Because the person on the receiving end, whether or not they're looking for a lawyer, will have that knee-jerk reaction. That sort of know it when you see it. Ooh, this sounds interesting or not. When you go to listen to a webinar, it's either interesting to you or it's not. When you land on a restaurant, you either have the vibe or you don't. It's the same for services, it's the same for B2B. And when we do attraction marketing, we are putting out everything that we want. We're putting out all of our best intentions and then also realizing that there is a real human on the other side and their perception is what actually makes your brand. So for me, it's not about converting. It's not about coercing anyone. It's not about convincing anyone. I'm the best lawyer there is. That's not really useful. Let them decide. It's that sort of show, not tell. So using testimonials, using empathetic language, using kind faces. If something like having a lawyer that looks and sounds like you is important, have your legal team's faces and names on your website. Don't just be this like anonymous corporate wall that they're like, I don't know who I'm going to be working with. Really showing people, yes, you want to make a sale. You want to have paying customers for sure, but it's not about convincing anyone of anything. It is about putting out in the world and having them sort of match that energy because yeah, it's simply showing up and sharing how what you have and how you do it and why you do it is the perfect fit. And they are consenting adults and they can decide whether or not you are the perfect fit. And they can ask follow-up questions and you can be prepared for that. But really it's that initial, here's who we are. It's an identity. That's really what it is.
Yeah, and lawyers typically have some kind of like profile on their website of like, here's a picture of me, but then it's like very factual. I practice this area of law. I went to law school. I
Yeah.
graduated from law school. I'm licensed in these jurisdictions because that's a question I've never received. Is like, are you licensed in Illinois? It's like, no, I'm not. And people reach out to me all the time who are not in my licensed jurisdiction. Licensing is the furthest thing from their mind. They just want to know, can you solve my problem?
Exactly.
And,
I
and,
think
and
I
so
yeah.
like getting away getting away from the facts and getting more into emotional or why you do what you do
Yeah.
on your firm profile. Like that's sort of what you're talking about.
Exactly, without losing the authority. Again, you paid a lot of money and a lot of sweat equity to have those credentials, right? Put them there. Again, for the more factual minded shoppers, buyers, right? But also show them who they will be working with. If they only see that you were, this legal fraternity president and you are chair of this board and whatever other credentials I have seen with a lot of lawyers. I feel like I did like social media management years and years and years ago, and I have these like vivid memories of these just very dry, yeah, bios for lawyers
Yeah.
specifically. But anyway,
Nothing's
uh,
changed, Ashley. Nothing's changed. In fact, it's
yeah, I
so
imagine
bad.
so.
It's so bad. I don't even have a profile on my website because I'm very findable. But like also like I've like
Mm.
I just want to reject that like banal, terrible attorney profile thing.
Yeah, I mean, you could even, depending on the voice and personality of like you and your firm, you could even have it almost like a drop down or like toggle method of like, want the receipts or like my actual credentials or something like that. So you could absolutely, again, list it. And maybe there are even legal requirements of, you must show that you are licensed in XYZ state or whatever it is. But so many service
Yeah.
providers in general are relying on these degrees that no client has ever asked them about, or relying on these certifications or any other credentials that, yes, they influence how you view the world, they influence how you do the work you do, but that is not what clients are looking for. I think if we can just be more empathetic to okay, someone needs something. What is it that they need? How am I going to solve it? Why would they choose me? If we could answer those questions, I mean, that's your website copy, that's your one pager, that's your elevator pitch, that's everything in a nutshell. And again, keeping that human on the other side is the most important anchor when we're doing any of this.
And then that at least implies that you gotta identify like who that human is. You got to think about who's your customer, client, avatar, profile, etc. Right? Like, yes, step into their shoes and see things from their perspective, but like you can't just make things up, and think somebody's going to see this, right? You have to have like these are the types of people who I want to see this too. Is that part of the attraction
Yeah.
marketing?
Yeah, and okay, I'm glad you brought that up because I also know that a lot of law firms or just, single lawyers have a lot of different practice areas. And so I imagine having an ideal audience is actually quite tricky for a lot of practitioners.
Very
It's the
much
same.
so.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's the same for a lot of service providers, right? Well, I have this $5 offer and I have this $5,000 container. Like it's hard because, it's not the same person. So to that, I say find the common thread. For me, it is often values and or personality fit, but also what is the common thread? What is it that you are the same practitioner regardless of which practice area you are performing in, right? So what energy, point of view, maybe certification or training, what is it that you are bringing to any case, to any client, to any situation? That is also how you decide whether or not this sponsorship makes sense for you and your business, whether or not this ad makes sense for you and your business. And really knowing what that common thread is, that central part of your business, of which audience is a huge part, is very, very important because otherwise you will be just spread in all different directions. You'll be standing for nothing. You'll be trying to appeal to everyone and therefore appealing to no one. You will just be that vanilla, generic. Yeah, you'll probably get some clients through the door because, again, they don't know better, but you're not going to find those perfect fit clients. So think about what you love to do the most, the type of person you love to work with the most, at which point in their life or business you love to work with the most. I like to think of ideal clients as the center of a bullseye. So you will very likely hit elsewhere on the bullseye, right? It's really bad when you get off of the target entirely, but it can sometimes work out if it's sort of on the outer echelon of the target. But if you can really, really, really hit that bullseye every single time, those are your best advocates. Those are your best return clients. Those are the easiest people to work with. You're fastest with them. You are most aligned with them. They're not annoying. You don't dread their calls or emails, that sort of thing. So finding those common threads amongst your people, but also amongst your practice is really, really important. An outside perspective is pretty essential for that because we're so close to it. But if you can do it all on your own or all internally, all the better for you.
I am a consumer of so much information and strategies and ideas and stuff, and I've not heard of this bullseye thing before. I think it's really
Really?
cool, Ashley. I mean, like, I'm not consuming maybe as much marketing stuff as you are, right? Like, that's why it's great to have you on the podcast. But like right there, I could already imagine, right? Like in the center, my ideal client. But then like in the next run around, I think it's maybe worthwhile to engage in an exercise that's like, okay, so who's in that next rung outside of the bullseye, and the one outside of that, and the one outside of that, right? Like to actually think about, what those clients look like as you move away from ideal that you're still maybe even interested in serving.
Yeah, and that can be a really interesting exercise for a few different reasons. One, resource allocation. So you only have so much time and money and energy and connections to allocate. So if you are trying to chase every which type of client or every which practice area, you simply will spread yourself too thin. You also won't have that reputation. The central question of my entire business is, how do you want to be known? How do you want to be known? And so if you are trying to be everything to everyone, you just really won't be known for okay, lawyer. Okay, and then like full stop, right? So that resource allocation is really, really useful for that. But also for that sort of visionary energy that you want to bring to the table. I want to pivot. I want to expand. I want to hire junior lawyers, or I want to have some sort of course offering or product offering beyond actual practice, okay, what would that look like? How would that best serve my current audience? How would that pivot to a new audience? It can be a price point difference. It can be, again, a sort of the way they work with you difference, especially for something like subscription models. That can be a really interesting anchoring point as you do pivot, as you do sort of chess move, imagine what this could look like, how this could manifest. And again, you can then pour in this amount of time or money or energy into that pivot and like, okay, if it builds some momentum, great, keep going. If it feels off, pivot back to the central and make sure that that central part of your business is always fully operational.
Let me tell you about the brand new sponsor for Law Subscribed, Paxton. I've been using Paxton as my legal AI tool for over 2 years. I continue to evaluate and demo other legal AI tools in the market and still decide to stick with Paxton because of its reliability, its accuracy, its ease of use, affordability, and they do not lock you into a long-term contract. Now, as a transactional and fractional general counsel attorney, I'm using Paxton for all of my substantive and non-substantive legal work, whether that's legal research, analysis, drafting, or enhancing existing legal work product. In the time it used to take me to draft and analyze legal documents, now, after a little bit of back and forth with Paxton, I have something ready to go in minutes that used to take hours or even days. While I'm no longer a litigator, I could see how valuable Paxton would be when researching a new issue, preparing for a deposition, drafting a motion, or going to trial. So if your firm would benefit from using Paxton as your legal AI tool, then make sure to use the link in the description when signing up to let Paxton know I sent you. That's all about our new sponsor. Now back to the show. Yeah, and you know, to stick with the exercise of the bullseye, like if a potential client is talking to you and you find out they're not anywhere on the target, maybe it's not a good fit. And maybe you don't need to take that client too.
Yeah, and I understand. Oh, I understand to my core, like, oh, I don't want to turn someone away. That's revenue in the door. But also, first of all, you can have referral partners. So you can have people from your law cohort, people in your community, people from wherever you know them, whoever's in your network, you can have people to direct them to. It's a win all around. It's a win for the client because it's a better fit. It's a win for your referral partner because they get a new client in the door. It's a win for you because you don't have to waste your time and energy with that. Maybe you get a referral bonus, maybe you don't, maybe it's just goodwill. Great. Referral partners are wonderful for that. But then you can also, I had another thought around, I lost it. Referral partners are wonderful for that. And I don't know, maybe it'll come back to me.
While you're waiting for that to come back to you, another topic to discuss. We're all high level here, obviously, because we only have you for so long today, Ashlee. Consent marketing. What the heck is that?
Yeah, so I feel like I learned about this from Seth Godin. He's really big on consent-based marketing. And the one example that jumped out at me, like, that has stuck with me, and I have sort of a goldfish memory. I think I digest it and I cannot regurgitate it. But his example was, if you stopped emailing, would someone miss you, basically? You know, if they stopped getting your newsletter every week, every month, every day, he has a daily newsletter. Would they notice? Would they care? Would they be like, oh, how did I get off the list? That is like the essence of consent marketing for me. So upstream, that looks like not buying email lists or contact lists. And again, maybe that's not even like legally an option for you as a lawyer.
That doesn't mean lawyers don't do stuff like that.
Exactly,
that they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
But the point is they shouldn't be doing it anyway because it's probably not going to work.
Yeah, because I mean, how often have you gotten just those generic, we've talked about this, you and I, those pitches, maybe they get your name wrong. Maybe they get your business name wrong. Maybe it's just hello, or maybe it's insulting of how, oh, I have so many in the subject line is fix your IG. I don't want to fix my IG, especially from someone who is emailing me out of the blue to say, fix your IG. I just don't want it. I've had a lot of podcast requests, like podcast guest requests lately from AI, like literally it says AI in the email address. And some of them aren't even personalized. Some of them try to fake personalization. And I can tell very clearly that they have never listened to my podcast. But some of that, I got one recently that it didn't even get any details right, like not my name, not the show name, not any details correct. So don't be that person. I did not consent for that person to reach out to me. And again, cold outreach is very different if it's intentional, right? If you have a dream business that you want to work with and you know that they're going to need legal services, by all means, well, maybe you're not allowed to, but start that relationship in some legally appropriate way if you are able to, or get that intro, get that referral, get
Right.
that alignment.
Comment on LinkedIn to people who work at the business and who are making posts, things like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Open that door by all means. That cold outreach is not icky. It's not unethical. And it is consent based, especially if it's, commenting on a LinkedIn profile or something like that. But having it just be very apparent that when they sign up for this opt-in, they're going to be on your email list. What cadence will you be emailing them? Can they opt out at any point? We've all been on those lists that's like, there's no unsubscribe button. Why am I still on this list? This is so annoying. That is the opposite of consent marketing. So really just making sure that what you're putting out is what people want from you, and being sure that they even want to hear from you to begin with. And when they say, I don't want to hear from you, really, really respecting that. For me, that's really important.
So in the beginning, when I had you on, I asked you to introduce yourself, and then I asked you your why, and that's your pitch in a way, right? And something lawyers need to do all the time, in particular because we can't do the cold outreach. We're going to a lot of in-person networking events or like virtual Zoom networking events, and we have a minute at most, maybe sometimes only 15, 30 seconds to pitch ourselves. So I know that that's something that you work on with people. You have like a handout or giveaway or something on pitching. So curious to know, like what do you have to share about pitching? Not that you've necessarily worked with lawyers before, but believe me, every lawyer can benefit from learning a thing or two about how to pitch themselves.
Every person, to be honest. I've worked with a lot of job seekers lately, which is a little bit out of my normal domain. And even then, they need an elevator pitch, right? But for sure, if you are the face of your business, if you're the founder of your business, you need to be able to communicate who you are, what you do, why it matters to the people on the receiving end. So yeah, I do have a whole workbook around this that has a lot of exercises to think around it. Because again, if it's just like, well, okay, just write down your elevator pitch. Well, if it was that easy, we would all have a perfect one, right? I also have a podcast episode about it if you're just more auditory. But essentially, you want to think about who's on the receiving end. So the context of the conversation. You do not need a single elevator pitch. I know you've done an episode about elevator pitches, and that was something that you talked about. Our context, our copy, our content, our conversations, they change. And it is not fickle to change how we introduce ourselves based on who is in the audience. It is, in fact, very empathetic, knowing what it is that they need to hear from you or would want to know about you before leaning in. It's also very important. This is another Seth Godin quote I've shared somewhere, I don't know where, but basically we're not selling on the internet, or we are selling on the internet. We are not selling on the elevator. We are simply going for that lean in moment that, oh, that sounds interesting. That open the door to the conversation. The idea of, okay, I want to keep talking to this person. Okay, I have someone that comes to mind, even if I'm not their perfect fit. Or I should follow this person on the internet. Or I should get on their mailing list. Or I will Google them when I get home. Those sort of next, very practical, very small steps. We are not thinking that with every single conversation we have and every single opportunity to introduce ourselves, every single person who hears it is going to become our client. That would be wonderful, but impossible. And also, like, you would never even be able to handle that volume anyway. So really considering the fact that we want to be empathetic and aware of where we're showing up, how we're showing up, and the person on the receiving end. And then going for that differentiation. So again, I'm a lawyer. Okay, great. If someone very specifically says, I need a lawyer, you might come to mind, but you might also be the wrong fit for them because you don't even do the type of law that they need, right? So balancing that specificity with generality is very important. And that is why I'm a huge proponent for finding that something special, finding that little key differentiator, finding that values alignment. So for you, the whole subscription model is memorable and different. And some people might not even fully understand that. And that might be okay because we're just going for that lean in moment. They might say, oh, what do you mean? And then you can explain, well, most lawyers do XYZ, I do this. So again, we are simply inviting that conversation. And however we are able to convey how we view the world, who we're showing up for, and why we do what we do, if we can nail all of that into one, two little sentences, we're golden.
Look, lawyers love jargon, and like when you're in law school, you learn in your first year, maybe even your first semester, like, oh, there's two like big categories of lawyer. It's litigation and transactional. And
Okay.
like, and then like you just think about that. And like if you say that to a layperson, like they might kind of be able to figure out what that means, but maybe not. Like when they think of transaction, like they're not thinking of that word transaction like a lawyer's thinking of that word transaction. Litigation, they just know like that sounds like something they don't want to be involved with. So what I've learned after 3 years of owning a solo practice law firm is I don't
Yeah.
use the word litigation. I use courts. I use
Okay.
court stuff. And very recently, like within like the last 6 months, I started pivoting away from using the word transactions to using deals,
Ah,
like a
interesting.
deal lawyer rather than a transactional attorney. Because I
Okay.
help people get deals done. I don't help them with their transactions. And that's like a small thing, but it's like I think people understand it a little more colloquially deal versus a transaction.
Yeah, and I think that is important. So I'm a words person. Obviously, that's what I do. But yeah, when I think of transaction and litigation, my brain goes a bunch of different directions, and I don't think either like any of those were what you just described. But what you just said that get deals done. First of all, I'm a huge sucker for alliteration, but that feels very concrete for me. Because even deals, it's like, well, what do you mean? Like discounts or like are you the one selling the thing? I mean, again, I don't think I would think that, but for someone who's looking for a lawyer, sometimes they are so far removed from what lawyers do that they have no idea who they're even hiring or what they're even hiring them for. So the idea of like getting deals done feels again very specific, very down to earth. And okay, I'm not doing any deals right now, but if I met someone who was, I don't know, selling their business or like, I don't know, doing some other deal, that would stick in my mind. That's very sticky. So we don't need to be overly clever. We don't need to be for sure not overly jargony, but we do need to have something for someone to latch onto. And again, you can inject some sort of emotional element. So like I don't know, doing deals without the ick factor or something like that. Or I don't know,
Mhm.
like because I think a lot of lawyers could vet potential partners. I think that's within the domain of law. Or I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of ways that lawyers again could differentiate themselves without the legalese. I would skip the legalese in almost all contexts, except for potentially with fellow lawyers or very legally aware clients, partners, atmospheres. But otherwise, I would bring it as down to earth as possible without being pedantic or like making the person feel like you're dumbing it down for them. That's not what it's about. It's about that empathy.
And if you're not sure and you're listening to this and you want to listen to Ashlee's advice, you could use AI to help you just type in like whichever, I think pretty much any AI platform can help you with this. Type in the way you normally describe it or just dictate it right in because you can pretty much dictate into everything now and say, like, can you translate this at an eighth grade level or at an easier way to a more colloquial language, and see what the AI
Yeah.
gives you. And you don't have to use what the AI says, but it can at least get you thinking about how to say things in a simpler way.
Or even better, if you have an ideal client in mind, can you say how would a local small business owner understand litigation law? How would they explain it? That
Perfect.
sort of thing. Like, can you like
Yeah.
inject your voice, your values, and or your audience into those AI prompts and see what it spits out? You're still going to need to gut check it. You're still going to need to make sure that you would feel comfortable saying that. But yeah, that could be a really useful exercise at the very least. Even if you don't use whatever it spits out, it could be a really useful jumping off point.
And let me ask you, Ashlee, when you get a new client, do you think of that as a deal or a transaction? Because it is.
Oh, interesting. So I'm also in that sort of like I don't do transactional business kind of realm, but obviously it's an exchange of money, time, energy. So yes, I would view it as a transaction over a deal, but also there is an agreement involved. There is an exchange involved. So I guess it's a deal to some extent. I view it more as a relationship, but yeah, I would put it in that category.
Okay, so like then there you go. Like I help relationships be legal. Like I mean there you go,
Oh,
right?
oh, that's really cool. That's really fun. So I do like the
I
sort
do
of like,
prenups too. I do actually do prenups.
well, there you go, right?
Business relationships. I help keep, business and client relationships legal. Like that's the
Above
thing.
board, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
like, and also, okay, so I've also heard that contracts are kind or something like that, right? Like being upfront, having those boundaries, it's not only protecting you, it's also really good for the client so that they know what to expect, so that they know what to point to, so that if something goes wrong, they can say, hey, we agreed to this. So, like, framing contracts and agreements and relationships and transactions as this is good for everyone, that is not how every lawyer would frame that. So if you can frame it that way, that would really make you stand out. And again, not for the sharks out there, but you're not the lawyer for the sharks, right? That's also another element of attraction marketing is the repelling. When you are attracting people, you are simultaneously repelling the wrong fit people. And the more of those people who are off the target that come into your orbit and you actually work with, the more people just like them that they're going to bring into your orbit because they're going to say, oh, I worked with this guy, I worked with her. And they're going to say, okay, well, maybe I should give them a try. So aiming for those perfect fit people is really, really important for that relationship building, that legacy building, and that reputation.
Well, we have about 5 minutes left. And so we'll start to wrap it up here. Something that I've started to do with these LinkedIn Lives, assuming my guests like you, Ashlee, agree to let the AI companion on Zoom run in the background, is I've been using that to substitute for asking, like, if we're not getting any questions from the audience. So
Okay.
I'm now prompting. So for those who haven't used the AI Zoom companion, the button prompts that you could ask are catch me up, because like the idea is we're all in a meeting together and like somebody might come in late and needs to be catched up or caught up. Was my name mentioned? Which like you could again think like, if somebody's in a meeting, like, oh, was my name mentioned? I showed up late. I wasn't sure. What are the action items and what topics have been discussed? But what I'm asking is there anything unclear that could benefit from a deeper dive? And so we'll see what the AI companion comes up with for a question to
Okay.
like wrap up this conversation.
All
Um,
right. I feel like we skimmed over a lot of it. So yeah, I bet there is.
Okay, so here we go. Based on the conversation, there are a few areas that could benefit from a deeper dive. Oh, that sounds like such an AI started response, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Uh, the concept of attraction marketing and how it applies specifically to legal services is number one. Number two, practical examples of how lawyers can differentiate themselves through their website copy and profiles. Interesting. Strategies for creating an effective elevator pitch for legal professionals, which we kind of touched on, and I understand you might have a link for attorneys to go to. You could share in a second here. How to balance professional jargon with more accessible language when communicating with potential clients. So we've all kind of covered that at a high level. And so for the lawyers who are watching this or listening to this later, Ashlee, maybe you want to tell them how they could reach out to work on all four of these topics with you.
Yes, yes. So I do think I think part of the reason this was like a little bit vague is because each firm is so specific. So yes, we have law, the again, the types of clients that you work with and the way you view your role in their business or their life is pretty variable. So I do think that one-on-one work is much more effective for this type of conversation. So yes, definitely reach out, book an alignment call with me. They're free. We talk about your vision and how we could work together. But what was it? Do I answer one of the AI questions?
No, no, no. I just figured I
Okay.
just like it was interesting. It didn't actually do a good job. Like this AI is so disappointing sometimes. But I think that like what that did though is it created like a framework for an idea of how if lawyers do want to go deep, if any of
Yeah.
my listeners want to go deep with you, right? Like
Yeah.
do you have a link? Do you want to tell them about the pitch workbook and how they could
Yeah,
download
yeah,
that
yeah.
and do that?
So yes, both. I would, if you want to chat with me directly, ashleesang.com/align. And we would talk about, okay, well, is your elevator pitch/intro your biggest pain point? Or is it your about page? Or is it your homepage? Or is it deciding, what your target audience even is and what they even care about and what words they even need to use. The AI prompt was like, well, how do I differentiate between jargon and my audience's language? That is a conversation we could have on a consulting call, on an ongoing basis, etc. So the alignment call is the best way to chat through that. And then I would highly recommend downloading the elevator pitch workbook. You don't have to do all of it. It's not homework, but it is a really useful framework. Also, a lot of people use I help statements, which is like kind of my biggest pet peeve because you do so much more than help, right? We're all helping out here. We all want to be helpful. So I have a few resources around how to use the I help statement as a really good solid baseline and then make it a lot more special. So I have that at ashleesang.com/law live, just like the name of this talk that we're on right now. Yeah, /law live. And yeah, reach out with any questions. I have obviously follow-up emails that come with that, and you can share your elevator pitch. I can share feedback on, ooh, this is really interesting, or this is a little bit confusing still. And I live and breathe this stuff. I love chatting about it. So would love to connect.
Yeah, and then we could probably have a whole episode on your business model, because I understand that other than like one-off consulting calls that folks could definitely sign up for if they just want a one-off call, that you don't bill by the hour, you're doing value-based pricing. Is that right?
Yeah. I have a retainer basically that most lawyers would probably like shake in their boots because I have zero constraints around it because I have never had a client abuse it. So it's sort of like on call. I'm a thought partner when they need me. It ebbs and flows as the month goes, as the months go on, because we're all really busy in our business. So we're not always just like pouring over our marketing content all day, every day. But it's nice to have someone to soundboard with and line edit with and strategize with when we do have that time and bandwidth. So I have a retainer like that. I do an intensive that is not tied to any time. If it takes me, 2 hours to do it, if it takes me it used to be a single day and now I'm doing it as a week. So it wouldn't take me 2 weeks to do it, but it is not tied to time. It is, This is the deliverable and this is the feeling that you're going to have after it, which is clarity and confidence and a way to talk about what you do and why it matters and how you're different. So yeah, I have stepped away from any sort of hourly billing except for one-off consulting calls for a very long time now, and it feels much, much better. Sometimes I come out behind, but most of the time it feels a lot more equitable.
And if you're a lawyer and you still think you come out behind on things, watch my LinkedIn Live with Ron Baker, because he explains why cost accounting is not the right way to think about like coming out behind. Because if you're delivering great value and they stay a subscriber, if they stay a client, you're not coming out behind at all, because in the long term overall, and from all clients looked at it from a portfolio perspective, you're way ahead.
It's that trust building. It's that relationship building. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And so it's great to see that your business model comports with the way that you help your clients with what they do. And for lawyers, again, listen to what Ashlee said about her clients have more important things to do than talk to her all day. I hear all the time from lawyers, well, I can't offer unlimited calls because my clients are just going to abuse my time. It's like, no, they won't. They have more important things to do. And I don't offer unlimited time. I offer unlimited scheduled calls. So my clients can schedule calls with me whenever I'm available. Shout outs to Calendly. That is the software tool that powers that for me, right? So keep that in mind, everybody, because I really think that's a great takeaway is don't be afraid that your clients are just going to keep contacting you nonstop, because they have to make the money in their business, their legal stuff, their marketing stuff. That's only a small portion of their time. So they're not going to take up all of your time. So I think that's great.
And you'll get faster the longer you work with them too. You know them, you know their business, you know their needs,
Yeah. And the retainer or subscription model lends itself really well to that. Well, Ashlee, you stick around because there's a lag, and we're going to, we want to make sure everything gets captured on LinkedIn. But just, again, want to recommend everybody. There'll be links to this in the show notes for the podcast version. I'll add links in the comments on LinkedIn. So click on those And follow Ashlee on LinkedIn if you're not already. If you're in Ashlee's network and this is at all potentially interesting to you, I don't know, you're welcome to follow me on LinkedIn too. And
Yeah.
thanks everybody for coming. And again, Ashlee, stick around. But thanks for coming on Law Subscribed Live. And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Make someone's day by sharing this episode with them. The best way to get in touch is to follow and message me on LinkedIn. To get extra content, subscribe to the newsletter at www.lawsubscribe.com, where you can also become a paid subscriber to get episodes and content early. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.